Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Between the Lines podcast with Aiden and Chris. Chris, how you feeling today, brother?
What's going on, Aiden? Doing good.
Yeah, not much, man. Pretty chaotic weekend in terms of sports. We had a football-filled Saturday, I guess you could say, with NFL and college football. We don't really talk about college football a lot, but now that the playoffs are here, Chris and I figured we'd discuss a little bit like the format and the outcome of these games. We'll get right into it, I guess. The first game was Notre Dame, Indiana. Um, Now, I didn't watch too much of this game, but I watched maybe the second half, I guess. Um, Indiana had a phenomenal season before I say anything about them in terms of this game. Their head coach completely flipped it around. I give him a lot of credit for what he did. They were not a good program for the past, forever, basically. I mean, Indiana came out 11-1. Yes, they lost to Ohio State, and everyone's always arguing, saying they didn't play anybody good or real, but they weren't playing anybody good or real for the past couple of years, and they have not, won those games either or had a great record like this. So I give them respect. But Notre Dame is just another level of football. Um, so yeah, I think this wasn't a surprising one, but Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, nice to see a somewhat close game compared to some of the other
Yeah,
ones. Like you said, Indiana had a
yeah,
great season. Notre Dame had a little bit of an up and down season, a little
yeah,
little weird. I think you could say that about like pretty much all of these programs,
yeah,
other than Oregon, really. Like everyone, it was kind of a weird year in college football. I don't know whether that has to do with the transfer portal and a lot of movement in players and whatnot, but so far, these games haven't really been that close. Obviously, we have to
yeah.
wait for the full body of work to see if we can really judge this 12-team format. Obviously, you would think no matter what year, like there's obviously going to be some blowouts because you have SEC powerhouses going up against, essentially mid majors. I know the conference is all pretty much realigned, but it's a little different than what
Yeah.
we've seen in the past. But hopefully, in this next round, we have some good matchups between some really big programs. Just to keep recapping, we had your Penn State Nittany Lions. I'm sure you were locked in for all of
Yeah.
that. Your big PSU guy, big win over SMU. SMU had a great year. Um, but yeah, just another non-competitive game. So, any thoughts on that game from someone who watched the whole thing?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, being my uncle's a Penn State alum, my brother goes there now, so we've always been Penn State fans. I'm not trying to sound biased or anything like that, but it wasn't, Penn State's 26-0. Um, I forget the stat. It was like something. I think it was like playoff games at home. They're 26-0 or something like that. They don't. Maybe it's not playoff games. It was something about like winter games or something. Winter games at home. They're always 26-0 against non-divisional teams or non-conference teams. And yeah, SMU being from Texas, it's a snow game. It's absolutely frigid. Penn State is. I just went there. I went for the Ohio State game. Yes, we lost that, but I went and visited some of my friends up there. It is the loudest stadium I've ever been in. I don't think it compares to anything else. I think they met like it was 110,000 people there. Now, looking at actual football, Penn State's defense, in my opinion, has really carried them this entire year and kept them in close games. Now there was the USC game where Drew Aller had to show out, but that offense has struggled a lot this year. Really, I just don't think Drew protected the ball well, and that's great. But we get further into these playoffs, you're gonna have to rely on the offense to get into a shootout, maybe, and go against a team like Notre Dame or Georgia later on, or if you go to the finals and play a team like Ohio State or Oregon or Texas. It doesn't matter who you're going against. All these guys are high-powered offenses, and yeah, the defense could make a couple things happen, but I just think the Penn State's defense has kept them in it. It can only take you so far. Drew's got to open up the passing game. I think it's also with the coordinator as well. But I liked Penn State's win. Their defense was dominant. SMU, like you said, Chris, great season. It's just another level of football. I really believe it is. It's just that's what you just talked about. The difference in conferences is so significant, and it doesn't matter if you win the conference and you play a team that's at the bottom of their conference. It's just complete. It could be completely different football. Um, so going on to the next game, Ohio State, Tennessee. Now, Ohio State, again, probably the second best program this year. I'd say right below Oregon. They only lost to They lost to Michigan as well, to be fair. Well, I'm not a fan of Ryan Day. I'm really not. I think he's like, I don't know how to put it, but it's like if it was like an army of lions was led by sheep. I don't know if you've heard that quote before, but it was like they have a stacked roster, dude. Ohio State always does. I just don't like how he manages that team. And Tennessee, it's another level though. But Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State has a very good team every year since, especially since Ryan Day got there. I mean, one year they had Stroud, Garrett Wilson, Smith and Jigba, Olave,
Olave.
and if I'm not mistaken, Marv was a freshman, through
Yep.
freshman. So they have a lot of talent. They can't seem to get over the hump in the college football playoffs. We'll see if that changes this year. I mean, they got a tough draw. They got to go play Oregon next after a nice win against
Yeah.
Tennessee. But yeah, not a big Ryan Day guy. He can't beat Michigan. It'll be interesting to see if they lose. Do they maybe make a switch because not beating Michigan is huge. I mean, especially Michigan's on a down year. They lost their entire
Yeah.
coaching staff essentially and their entire team, and they still
Yeah.
got beat at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tennessee
It's the only
really didn't
reason.
look good either. So
Tennessee was very off. I don't know. I think the matchup of Ohio State Oregon is gonna be huge. I really believe. This sounds bold, but I'm like, I think if Day wants to keep his job, he's got to beat Oregon. I really do, and I'm not saying he has to
I
go win the
agree.
whole thing.
I could see that.
Not win, yeah, like not winning the whole thing, but he's got to get past one of these super teams just to prove that he can manage and take care of these guys. Um, Now, Chris, here's the controversial game, in my opinion, was Texas Clemson. I think this was the
Yeah,
closest game out of all of them. I think Cade Klubnik played some of his best football for Clemson, but
yeah.
Texas is just another level, of course. Now, here's the thing, though. Quinn Ewers looked
He's not been very good this year.
okay. Yes, exactly. This game, he just looked okay. He just looked
Yeah.
good. They did play a lot of heavy run scheme, I guess you could say. I mean, Quinn didn't get a lot of opportunities, I'd say, compared to the
Yeah, I
running
think
game.
Blue had about two. I think he had two touchdowns.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he
two
had a solid day on
touchdowns,
the
like
ground.
two long touchdowns to be two. So
Yeah.
it just took pressure off of Quinn. I'm not saying Quinn played bad. I just don't think Quinn Ewers is great. I just think he's surrounded by a lot of talent. Now, they're playing Arizona State, and Arizona
Yeah.
State's one of those, lower tier conference kind of teams. And, respect to them for winning their conference and getting to the playoffs. I completely agree with that. They should have made it. They had a great season. Texas is another level of football. However, you never know what's going to happen. I know it's very unlikely, but if Quinn struggles, would you be surprised if they just bench him completely and put Arch Manning in?
Um, no, but the thing is, like, this isn't a situation where Alabama a couple years ago benched Tua for Hurts in the Sugar Bowl, I
Yeah,
think, or the SEC championship rather.
yeah,
And like, back in the championship when they benched Hurts for Tua, it doesn't feel like this game would be the time to do it because know, even with an off Quinn Ewers, I think they should still be able to take care of Arizona State. I mean, they're opening as 2 touchdown favorites. That's a lot.
yeah,
Considering how shaky Ewers has looked, it's kind of crazy because at the end of last year, everyone always does their way to early mocks and prospect rankings. Like Quinn Ewers was pretty much a consensus top 10 pick, and now
yeah.
does he go in the second round? He's certainly not going in the first round. I mean,
I don't
I
think
say
he
that,
is.
but then crazy things happen. Crazy things happen, but as it stands right now, he does not look like he helped his stock at all. So it'll just be
Yeah,
interesting for me to see that as someone who follows it more for the NFL prospect rather than having a rooting interest in these college games.
yeah. He seems like the kind of guy. Like I know Jordan Love went in the first round, but he went later. He seems like that kind of guy where he just sat behind a veteran QB and has to learn, but he'd be a later draft pick for sure. I think Quinn has a lot of good qualities. I don't know. I think his decision making's been poor this entire year, but he just needs good leadership and development in order to get back to that. And yeah, for sure, if he shows out against ASU, then yeah, he shuts us up for sure. But you know, it's ASU then. That's where the controversy comes in. Then he goes and plays Ohio State or Oregon the following
Yeah.
week. That's the big question right there. It's like, okay, you showed us you played well against ASU. Now do it again against Oregon or Ohio State, where you're gonna have to throw the ball. You're going to have to make plays. You're gonna have to be relied on. Right? It can't just be the running game the entire time. Um, let's actually. I got the games written down here, Chris. We're gonna make our quick picks for the second round, and then I want to hear our final like prediction for who's gonna win at the end of it. Right?
Yeah.
So the first game I have written down would be Texas and ASU. So who you take there?
Yeah, I think I'll go with Texas despite some of the
Yeah.
issues that they're having. Again, like I don't think that unless Ewers is having like a crazy bad game, I don't think this is a game that you bench him.
Yeah.
I think you want to go into the Cotton Bowl if they make it there, um, with some confidence coming off a win rather than a quarterback controversy the week before. And if Ewers is bad in that game, then then you revisit it during the game. So I'll take
Right.
Texas for now.
Yeah. I'm taking Texas. I think it's just the same thing we've been talking about. It's a different level of football. I mean, there's just programs above programs kind of thing. There's always like a tier thing. So I'm gonna go Texas. But this next game is where I think we split for sure. But Ohio State versus Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State is favored in this game. They're getting 2.5 right now, but it's
This is
really
wild.
close. I don't know. I honestly I didn't watch a ton of college football this year because I didn't think the
Yeah.
product was great, and I don't think it has been great these last couple years. Like I really think the portal and NILs and kind of messing up some of the development of the players. I also
Yeah.
think that'd be interesting to talk about one day. I think I'm
Yeah.
just gonna go with the Ducks here because, you know, I'm not a Ryan Day guy, and he just really hasn't
Yeah.
been able to get it done in the playoffs to this point. So
Yeah.
I'll go with the
Never
Ducks,
mind.
but obviously
We're,
that's a
we're
toss up.
Yeah, we're staying on the same side then. I'm taking Oregon as well. I think they're just the
Yeah,
best. I think they're the most well-rounded team in football, in college football right now. I think
seems
they
like
fill out the
it. Yeah.
roster really well, but it's just great coaching and management as well. Um, by the way, talking about the transfer portal, completely off topic. Clemson and Dabo Sweeney had, I think, one transfer in the portal and made the playoffs. Did you read that stat? You ever
Yeah,
see that stat? They didn't have anybody. They just had recruits. That's actually wild to me. And
it's impressive
fair
given
play
what's
to
going on.
yeah, fair play, but use that portal, Um
Yeah.
anyway, next game. Penn State, Boise State. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, we got Ashton Genty, Heisman runner-up, he's having
Yeah.
a crazy year, but I still think I'm gonna go with Penn State. I like that defense. Aller's playing some pretty solid ball. You got Abdul Carter, he's probably a top 10, top 5 pick coming off the edge. So yeah, I think I'll go Penn State here.
Yeah. Now, when you mention Ashton Genty, I think he pops off again, no question about that. But,
It's hard to
you know,
contain him.
it's impossible to contain him, I feel like, especially in college football. I mean, he even ran all over Oregon, so he'll get his opportunities. He'll have a great game, but I don't think it'll be enough for Penn State just because of their just the Penn State's overall defense. So I'm gonna take Penn State. I think this. In all honesty, I am a fan of Penn State, but I think this will be the closest, if not besides Oregon and Ohio State, this will be the closest game of the week for sure.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. There's something about it that just makes me feel uneasy, but yeah, I'm gonna go Penn State. Notre Dame, Georgia.
Yeah, this is a tough game. I think I'm gonna go with Notre Dame just because
Whoa!
similar to Texas, it feels like Georgia's got some quarterback issues. Carson Beck got hurt towards the end of the season, and I don't know. I mean, we need some upsets in here, right? So I
Yeah,
think this is a game where it's most likely to happen. The Fighting Irish have had a pretty solid year overall, and I mean Georgia, other than that hiccup to Ole Miss and the loss to Bama earlier in the year, it's been a pretty typical Georgia year. But I don't know, they didn't have a great showing against Texas. So you could say the same about Texas not having a great showing against them a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago. So I think I'm just gonna go with Notre Dame here.
Interesting. I'm going Georgia just because I think they're I agree with you, Chris. The quarterback situation is a massive question mark. The loss, I mean, to be fair, the loss of Beck was huge, but also Beck was not playing his best football this year. I can't lie. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
similar to what you said about Quinn Ewers, Beck was probably maybe a late first round pick, maybe for a team that wanted to get their future quarterback later on, maybe a second round pick. At least early on, Beck was, and he was a Heisman runner. Um, he fell off just because he struggled with interceptions. Yeah, you mentioned the injury. I don't know. I think it's tough. I just think Georgia's a more well-rounded team. I really do. I think that defense is a dirty, nasty defense. I like Kirby Smart a lot. So I'm gonna go Georgia for now. Now, Chris, out of those four teams you picked, who's winning it all?
huh. Uh, I mean, it feels boring to say Oregon, and obviously, if I watched like a lot of college football, I think I'd have a more detailed analysis. But I didn't watch that much this year. Honestly, I don't. Like I said, I don't love the
Fair
product
enough.
of what's been going on. So think I'll just. I don't know. I mean, I think the winner of the Oregon Ohio State matchup actually might win the whole thing.
Interesting.
So I'm gonna go with Oregon here. Just
Okay.
throwing it out there. I'm
All
not a
right.
big college football guy this year, so
All right. Fair enough. Um. ugh, this is tough for me too. I'm. I love the. I don't know. I like just picking an odd random one and just going with it. Now, out of the four teams I have, which is Texas, Oregon, Penn State, and Georgia, most unlikely to win this, in my opinion, is probably Penn State. Um, I think they've just had the most struggles this year out of all four of these teams. I don't know though. So I'm going to go with Texas. I think Texas wins
I
it
was
all.
thinking about it. Yeah.
I think Texas can do it. I'm telling you what. I'm telling you right now, Chris. It will be a Tua and Jalen Hurts situation. I love Arch Manning. I'm a Giants fan. The nephew of my quarterback, Eli Manning, will win the national championship this year. I think I'm gonna go with Arch Manning. And Texas. I think Quinn struggles against either ASU or the following round, and Arch comes in and just blows it up because I think he's a redshirt freshman. It'd just be a crazy story. It'd be a crazy story for that to happen. So I'm gonna go with like some crazy out of pocket thing. Now maybe Quinn Ewers pops off and Texas still wins it. Fair enough, but I'm going Texas.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
feels like a toss up here. Like none of these teams. It doesn't feel like when we had, Michigan last year or some of the Alabama teams of the past, or even the Georgia teams of the last couple of years, where you just kind of knew that they were gonna
Yeah.
run through everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, looking at the 12 team playoffs, I like it. I really do. I like the at least giving these smaller guys a chance to beat the younger guy. Well, we will see it eventually. Not as much as people think will happen, but we will see like an SMU team come out and win a couple of games in the playoffs if they make it in the future. Something like that. But I don't know. I like it. It's just I don't know, Chris. It's a tough conversation because when you look at the top schools and programs, these guys are on another level. These guys are all like NFL bound compared to like SMU players.
Yeah. I think it's more of a conversation of what's going on in college football as a whole because of the lack of the development and players are so quick to hit the portal if they sit on the bench for 1 year and there's just way
Yeah.
too much turnover. And obviously NIL, like they're not even student athletes anymore. They're paid. I
Yep.
think the Michigan
Yeah.
quarterback got like $12 million, the number one recruit to go there. And it's just like
Yep.
and then now we're seeing the trickle effects into the NFL, which is
Yeah.
I think it's problematic for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um. Yeah. Speaking of the NFL, we'll transition over. Now Yesterday, I don't know. You and Chris want to do our picks next? We can do our picks next episode. So we'll just talk about the
Yeah,
Christmas
because we
games,
still
I
have
guess.
tonight's game
Yeah.
to go over. I
Oh,
mean, we
okay.
could
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
over
All
a
right.
little bit
All right.
of go over some headlines about what went over, but I think it'd just be
Here's
easier
what
as a
we'll do.
whole to just review all of our picks later.
I agree. I agree. So we'll look ahead to week 17. We'll just me and Chris are going to talk about Wednesdays, which is Christmas days, games. We have two games for us on Christmas, which I'm very happy about. I actually like both these matchups as well. But the first one is at 1 o'clock, and we got the Chiefs and Steelers. Now the Chiefs have been playing these weird prime, like these weird odd day games, but the
Yeah,
Chiefs played on Saturday, and then what? 5 days later, was that 4 days later? They're playing on Wednesday,
yeah, it's essentially
Sunday.
like playing a
Yeah,
Thursday night game with the
yeah,
turnaround. It's just weird that it's
yeah,
Saturday and Wednesday, but
yeah. Chiefs
I know.
Steelers. Go
I
ahead,
like that
Chris. Let's talk about it.
I like that they got four AFC powerhouses or AFC playoff teams at
Yeah,
least going. So yeah, so for this first game, we got the Chiefs at the Steelers. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs again. I mean, I've been sticking with them. They just know how to win these games.
yeah,
Um, it looked a little better uh, against Houston. I know, their full body of work. It seems like they haven't put together that great. Well, just because they haven't put together that offensive game that we're seeing, but that defense is playing really well. Spagnuolo has them flying around. They have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. It's hard to pick against them until they burn you, right? So I'm just gonna keep
yeah,
riding with them.
yeah. I'm rolling with the Chiefs as well. I think. I don't know. I like you said, Chris. I thought Mahomes was a lot more banged up than he was, and he played on Saturday. That
He looked
injury.
okay.
He looked good. I look at the screen after looking down at my phone, and the first play of the game or whatever it was, the first score of the game, it's a 20 or like a 15-yard rushing touchdown by Mahomes. I'm like, that's his longest rushing touchdown ever in his career. I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I picked the Texans to win that game. I was like, logically speaking, Mahomes wasn't going to be. He was like basically immobilized from what I was reading. And no, he plays right through it. I think he's got that mentality where he don't care, bro. He don't care about his injury. He's gonna play right through it. So he definitely
Yeah.
was maybe a little bit hurt, but he played through it and he played really really well. That's the Mahomes we're used to seeing. So yeah, give me the Chiefs. As bad as the Steelers need a win, I feel like. I mean, just to stay on top of that division um, against the Ravens, but the Chiefs are just too good, like you said.
Yeah.
All right, 4:30. This is gonna be for us Italians. We like to eat a little earlier, right, Chris? So this is gonna be post
Yes.
dinner. This is gonna be post dinner time
Yeah.
game. Ravens
It's perfect.
Texans.
It's perfect timing to watch this one.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly. But I'm gonna want to take a
Yeah.
nap, but I hope it's a good game. That's good. That's
It
gonna
should
keep me
be.
up
I mean,
off of the couch. Go
we
ahead,
got
Chris.
a AFC divisional rematch from last year's playoffs.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with Baltimore. I like Baltimore. I like that running game. I
Yeah.
think it plays really well in December. Obviously, this is a dome game because it's in Texas, so the weather is not going to be a factor here. But Derrick Henry, every year of his career, just gets better as the season goes on. So,
Yeah.
they're kind of humming that defense. Had a couple takeaways. It's getting back into its form. I was watching the broadcast and they made an interesting point that once they moved Kyle Hamilton, out of that like hybrid role, which he's very good at, but back into the back end as a free safety where he
Yeah.
can
Just
kind of
playing
roam
free
around and help in
safety.
pass coverage, it's fixed a lot of the issues they've had in their pass defense. And
Yeah.
they're kind of just rolling right now. And the Texans, they played a strong game against the Chiefs, but they just lost Tank Dell again. I feel so bad for him.
Yeah.
It's done a lot,
Yes.
the leg, he broke his leg, and then, he was unfortunately shot, and now I read kneecap, but I'm not 100% sure what's going on with him. Um, I like the Ravens here, and I think by the end of, Christmas Day, the Ravens are gonna be in first place, with controlling their own destiny to win the division, so we'll
Yep.
see what happens, but I like the Ravens here more than I like the Chiefs in the last game. I think that could be a little closer, but I think the Ravens should, take care of business here.
Yeah. That's a good point. Now, The Texans are still at the top, I believe, of the AFC South.
Yeah.
I think they've got it pretty much on lock. Um, However, I'm rolling with the Texans.
All
I
right.
think this, I picked up back-to-back weeks now. I don't, like you said, this is the kind of team where they come, they overcome adversity kind of thing. They lost a big one to the Chiefs. The Ravens are a little iffy to me because I think they've conceded a lot of close games sometimes. Um, at least not this year, but over a couple years. I think Stroud and the team, like you said, Chris, with the loss of Tank Dell, they play this one for Tank, bro. This is one of those stories that's going to come out and say the Texans do it for Tank or something like that. I genuinely believe that. I think Nico explodes today or Christmas Day. It just seems like one of those games. I know the Ravens defense has looked phenomenal, but they did play a Steelers team without George Pickens. Um, and yes, Calvin Austin
Fair
made some
point.
pretty big plays. I won't lie. But Nico's a dog when it comes to route running, deep routes at least. It's just, I think Chris texted in our dynasty group chat when he said Nico Collins' deep routes are a work of art. Um, that's what you said,
He's
Chris. I
just so
remember that. Yeah,
surgical. He's
yeah,
just
he
he's
is.
just an elite
He
route
is.
runner. I like him a lot, obviously, 'cause I have him
Yeah,
in Dynasty.
yeah.
Um,
I
but I
yeah.
just like
Go
the
for
way
it.
that Lamar is playing this year. I think this is I
It's
know
fair.
Lamar won two MVPs, but this feels like his best year, as a pocket passer.
I
He's
agree.
not he's not deferring to the run
Yeah,
off his first or second read. Like he's really hanging in there. And Andrews is, he's hot these last couple weeks. He was kind of a dud for the first 2 months of the season, but I think
yeah,
he's had like 5 touchdowns the last couple weeks. He's scoring.
yeah,
He can't stop King Henry. Hopefully, Justice Hill is okay. I think he just has a concussion. Took a
yeah.
nasty ball on his head, but he's a big
That
piece to
was
their
brutal.
offense too. He's like that change of pace back. I mean, they put him in. Derrick Henry's a little bit of a bruiser. Obviously, he can get up to that top speed, but he's a big guy,
Yeah.
so it doesn't feel like he's going that fast. But Justice Hill, every time you get on the ball in space, it's like he's shot out of a cannon. I just love what they do on offense. Solid offensive line, Likely's solid, and Bateman's really coming on. I mean, Bateman's had a rough couple years in the
Oh, yeah,
NFL,
for
but
sure.
it's like he's scoring every week now. So, and then obviously
Yeah,
Zay Flowers, another surgical route runner. I love watching him play.
yeah, I agree with you. I think this is gonna be a game that's a if it has to get to it will be a shootout, but maybe not a shootout, but close for sure. Purely because, like you said, Chris, the Ravens' run game is on another level compared to any other team, so they'll hold the ball a lot longer than most teams in the NFL. So keeping Stroud on the bench is a key point. I like Joe Mixon too. I think Mixon's had a great year.
Yeah,
Um,
he has.
I think they have to rely on him a little bit more. I don't know. Stroud's decision making has been a little bit off this year, but I
Their
like
offensive line is just brutal too.
that's
It's
also
just
true. That is also
yeah,
true. But I
it's
just
just
like the young power on both those sides. I like Will Anderson. Um, I think Will Anderson's having a great year as well. He's slowly rising more and more. It's just, I say that, but it's Lamar Jackson. There's not many guys that can go get him down. I don't even think TJ Watt got him down. How many times did TJ Watt get to him last week? I don't even think any. You know, I don't
yeah,
care
I'm
how
not
good.
sure. And PJ Watt usually has
Yeah,
his way with the Ravens.
yeah, yeah. But Lamar's a tough guy to get down, and hopefully Stroud makes the right decision. This will be a close game. I'm gonna take the Texans. I think they do it for Tank. They get a big win. This is a big confidence booster heading into like the winter time for the playoffs.
They could use
Knowing
a
they're
win for sure. They just
yeah,
got
that's
dealt
what
a
I'm
really
saying.
bad
Yeah,
card with these
right.
December games. They've just been
Yeah,
dealt a bad
they
hand.
got tough matchups. They got really tough matchups. So, you win one of these games, it's a big confidence booster going into the playoffs. So, they know they're going to win their division, but it doesn't mean anything. You got to win to the playoffs, and probably, luckily they'll probably be home for their first game if the seeding pans out right. So that's a big win. But I think they need to beat the Ravens just to give themselves a little more confidence.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, they've gone through it these last couple games, and then obviously losing Tank is that's a big loss. He's a big more so than just a player. Like he's a big heartbeat for that team. You saw
Yeah,
Stroud very emotional on
or
the
Stroud.
field.
Yeah, yeah.
That's It's tough. I feel for Tank. You don't want to see a guy go through so many injuries
Yeah, I agree.
this short career that he's had so far. So hopefully he's able to bounce back and be healthy for next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tank is one of those locker room presence that you want. He has a great story, just a great overall dude. Um, I think like you said, CJ was talking about like him being his brother and all that stuff, and they do everything together. And he was like CJ's like safety net, especially on and off the field, kind of. So losing that was massive. But I think this is the kind of thing that CJ uses as motivation. I think the whole team does, just to say like this dude worked his ass off for us, and we need to win for him. So that's why this is like I'm gonna get like judged or you see it as like a movie or something like that. Yeah, I am gonna see it like that because I think the Texans they like you said, Chris, they need a win. They really need to beat one of these kinds of powerhouse teams. So this would
Yeah,
be the time to do it.
these
Um,
should be good games.
yeah, for sure, it's gonna be a fun Christmas. Um, all right, last segment for this double header episode of the week, I guess you could say. We're gonna talk
Yeah, we'll
about
try to keep it a
fantasy.
little shorter today because we got
Yeah,
another one coming out this week. So
yep. We got fantasy talk. Chris and I played each other. We talked and we talked and we
yeah.
talked and we watched and we watched and we watched. And Chris came out on top by 10 points. Chris won. It was
And it was a close
138.84
game.
to 128.82. Chris, go ahead and talk about your team, bro. You brag, right? You got
Yeah,
the
I
bragging
mean,
rights.
I'm not much of a bragger because the job's not finished yet. I still got a big game coming up to try to defend my title. But we had been going over our lineups on the last episode, and I wasn't gonna make any moves. And then yesterday morning, I woke up and I kind of made some really big moves that ended up giving me
He
the
made
win.
a massive move.
This is a crazy move. I didn't think this would work. I took out Chase Brown and I put Brees in. Which wasn't that big of a difference because 13.9 to 14. So that didn't really impact it. I just thought Brees was gonna get a little more volume, especially on a
Yeah.
cold day in MetLife. Obviously, then that didn't really happen, but he had a couple catches. And then the big move was for the same reason, cold day at MetLife. I took out Cooper Kupp and I put in Brian Thomas Jr., who's been scorching hot
Huge.
these last couple of weeks, and
Huge.
that was the winning decision because Brian Thomas had 9 catches, a buck 32, and a touchdown for 28 points. Cooper Kupp only had 3 catches for 24 yards, and just when I woke up Sunday morning, it was frigid. Obviously, we're from New Jersey. We're very close to MetLife.
Yeah.
It was frigid, and I read that this was going to be the coldest game Matt Stafford ever played in. So I was like, Los Angeles team coming across the country. It's like 11 a.m. start time for them in this cold weather. Like, I'm not too sure how the passing game's going to go. So,
Yeah.
and it seems like they defer to Puka now, anyways. It seems like he's really the wide
Yeah.
receiver one. So I was like, why don't I just take Brian Thomas, who's in a matchup of two awful teams in a dome, where Mac Jones has been feeding him targets, and
Yeah.
that risk worked out. So I'm happy I did it. Obviously, I got burned with the quarterback move a little bit because Herbert outscored Rodgers by 10. But Aiden, I obviously wish we could have been on opposite sides of the bracket, but
Yeah. I
always,
don't
I
even
mean, we
think.
every year we play each other week one, and it feels like it always comes down to the playoffs for us. So
Yeah. Well, to be fair, on the other side, it was Nick and Sean going each other, and they both put up the same amount of points as you. And Sean beat Nick by point
barely
0.5
beat him.
points, by
Yeah, barely beat him. This
139.18 to 138.68 is what Sean beat him
the
by.
Cinderella run is over
Yeah.
for Nick.
To be fair, I probably wouldn't have competed with anybody, but I did. There could have been some moves where I get an extra like 9 points to keep it close, but my
Defense
running
hurt,
backs, yeah, my defense and running backs hurt me a little bit. I mean, I
and
had
then
Denver
obviously
defense.
golf.
Yeah, but the addition of Goff would have been nice. That's what I was gonna say. Is if I put Goff in for Baker, Goff got 27, Baker got 22, an extra 5 points right there. I had Rashad White and Aaron Jones in. Originally, I had Tracy in for Rashad White, and Tracy got 16 because he got that touchdown, luckily. No, 16.9, which would have been a huge addition. And Kareem Hunt got a touchdown as well, and I could have put that in for Aaron Jones. Like, neither of my running backs got a touchdown, which was a huge loss. My receivers, as per usual, carrying me. I had Lamb with 17, Neighbors with 13.8, Brock Bowers with 20, due to 11 catches for 99 yards. Terry
Beast.
McLaurin for 17. Like those are the guys that got me to as far as I got. Yeah, if I add in those 3 bench players and swap them out, I probably get to like 137 or something like that, something around there, like a point or two short. So it would have made it more interesting for sure, but not much I could have done anyway. Great season. Chris is our commissioner of this league, so thank you, Chris, for running it as always. It's
Yep.
hard
It's always a
for
fun
us,
time. It's
especially
hard
to
to
do the
maintain this
redraft.
redraft league.
Yeah,
Yeah. No one
a
wants
lot
to
of
do
guys that never
redraft
want to do
anymore.
it. I know. I love redraft though so much, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
That's
Chris and I are in a dynasty league with was it 10 other guys or 12 team? We're a 12-team dynasty league, and we started it like 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. It's been a great time, but it's like I love Dynasty's hard. It really is hard, and I love it. It's fun. It's just redraft is it's just classic, man. It's such a classic.
yeah, I
You
think
know?
redraft is like a lot more casual and not is obviously not carryover. Like you can make risky decisions without having to think
Hurting
about
you in
some
the
of the
future,
consequences. Like
right?
my big trade of the year, which honestly I think has gotten me this far, was I traded Tony Pollard about a month and a half ago for Devontae Adams, who was off to a slow
Yeah,
start with the Jets, and now
great move.
Adams, he's been, you know,
Cooking.
hoarding a lot of targets on the Jets offense, and running back was a
Yep.
position of strength for me. Obviously, Chase Brown and Bucky Irving hadn't taken off yet, but I had a feeling that they were about to,
Yeah.
and I thought I could part ways with Tony Pollard for Devontae. And I remember I was at school when I made the trade, and one of my roommates was like, "Well, you're just making that trade because you're a Jets fan, and I don't believe in Devontae, but you see it differently." And I was like, "I don't know, man. I mean, he's had the best years of his career with Aaron Rodgers, and I remember
Yeah.
watching him in that Halloween game against the Texans. It was like his first real, full game with a lot of practice for the Jets." And he just looked so good. His release
Yep.
is there. Obviously, the chemistry with Rodgers is there. I still think he's a very good player. So I was like, yeah, I'll take this risk. And I think obviously it's worked out. But going into Dynasty, you have to be able.
Chris, you cut out there for a second. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. I was just saying that you have to calculate your moves a little bit more in Dynasty compared to redraft.
Yeah.
You don't know what the ramifications. I mean, I'm still recovering from that big trade I made with you our first year where I tried to push all my chips in and win the whole thing in the first year, and I
Yes.
sacrificed a lot of draft capital. I rebuilt it back up, but when that happens,
Chris, you still there?
And sorry, did I cut out again?
Yeah, you cut out again. You're good.
Yeah, no, you take over. I was just saying that you really just have to think about some of the moves you make and some of the
Yeah, I
calculated
mean,
risks you have to take in
we could
Dynasty.
definitely we could definitely get into it with Dynasty more and more. I know our Dynasty group chat would go crazy for that, just to hear us talk, and we'd get clowned on or whatever for the stuff we're gonna say and whatever. But um, I like both of our teams now. I know maybe you definitely had to work a lot. We both did, to be fair, to get future guys that would fit into the future for us, and to build a team. Like I was already a playoff team, or I was like on the border of being out um this year, but I traded away Nico Collins, and that sounded like the stupidest thing to do. And I gave him to Chris. Why? Because Chris needed another receiver to have for the future for his building. Like Chris and I have helped each other a lot in this league, but I needed a first round pick this year badly. I need to get a guy that could either a receiver or a running back in the late first round that could be a number one guy in the team in the future, to have as my powerhouse. So I'm looking for that guy later on, for when we do our draft. because we draft rookies every year. But yeah, I mean, Chris and I I think, Chris, I honestly believe we have brighter futures than most people in the league. I think that's bold to say, but you have a good amount of picks to work with. So
Next year is my big year. I have 4 first-round picks and I think
yeah, that's
3
huge.
second-round picks in 2026. So that's my big year. This should be the 2025. I'm hoping to move some of those picks to acquire like some mid-level talent where I could buy,
Yeah,
15 points a game and just kind of
for
supplement my
sure.
team a little bit. And then
Mhm.
2026, hopefully if all goes well, that should be the year where I spend a lot of draft capital and make some big trades and try to get myself
Yeah,
set up for the foreseeable future.
like the I gave you the biggest addition for me this year actually was Chris gave me Sam Darnold. I needed a quarterback badly because I had Bo Nix who was tearing it up, but we have a super flex in our league, and I mean if you don't start a quarterback in your super flex, it's just dumb. 'Cause, you might as well get those extra 20 points or whatever, unless you have a big time superstar receiver. But I needed a quarterback badly. Derek Carr was struggling for me. So I said, Chris, let's work something out. Chris wanted to shop Sam Darnold. Chris came out to me. It was like 2/3 in a second. I was like, deal. Because I think Darnold is 27. And if he stays in Minnesota or not, he's going to get a big contract somewhere, I feel like, and be
Yeah.
a starter or at least get a chance at it. Kind of like a Baker contract where, he gets a 1 year deal and is like, all right, we saw you do this. You had a lot of bright spots. Do it again, and you get a big contract, and you can be our franchise guy. Now what team is that? I don't know. Um, but I just hope Darnold gets a starting spot somewhere because I think he was a good value pick. And Chris, you got 3 picks out of it from me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I regret the trade because I knew what I was doing when I made it. Like, I'm not going to the playoffs this year. Next year, honestly, might be a stretch, but I shopped him for so long and no one
Yeah,
wanted him. So that tells me that he really hasn't been valued from the guys in our league. Maybe if it was, I held on to him for a couple more weeks and took him into the offseason, maybe I could have gotten 2 seconds or a late first,
yeah,
but the value
for
just was
sure.
not there, and as someone who was just trying to acquire capital, saw an opportunity to get 3 picks for a guy I picked up in free agency 2 years and sat on my bench, so, I'm
Yeah,
fine with that
that's good value.
turnover.
That's really good value. I think you got great value for it. I know it doesn't. I mean, obviously he's the number 8 quarterback in terms of fantasy this year, but in terms of where he was at the start, like I got him pretty early on before he started getting consistent, I guess you could say. And
He
it
was
was
coming off a
like,
couple bad weeks when I sold him. I
yeah,
thought that that was
exactly.
maybe it, and, the
Right.
league had figured him out, but he's bounced back, so
Yeah, he bounced back huge. Obviously, when you have a guy like Justin Jefferson and a wide receiver two and Jordan Addison, it makes a quarterback's life easier. I'm not saying Darnold has it easy. It's just all Minnesota. He definitely has protected the ball really well and made smart decisions. So that's great. But I just saw it as, the quarterback for Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison too. I'm like, I got to take a shot on somebody if I'm. 'Cause I was right in the middle, and I had to give that up in order to if I wanted to make the playoffs, and I did. I didn't go far. So, Chris, any final comments about anything before you said tell everybody Merry Christmas and move on?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what goes on in these games on Wednesday. I think it should be hopefully a lot better than the Thanksgiving slate. I mean, that was a total dud. It's
Yeah,
not the NFL's fault because they make the schedule so far in advance, but complete dud, not fun to watch. So hoping we get some maybe some playoff previews. Depending on how
yeah,
things shake out in the AFC, this could tell us a lot about how we feel about some of these contenders in the AFC as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. Obviously, we'll review our picks, get into a little bit of Jets and Giants, some MLB offseason, and maybe a quick fantasy preview and see how I'm doing so far after those 4 games happen. And yeah, just kind of get into our normal stuff. We wanted to do just kind of a quick pod because there's so much going on. We didn't want to not take advantage of all the sports that are going
right.
on. So.
Yeah, because then in that case we would have had to do like a 2 hour episode this week, and that would have been a pain in the butt
Yeah,
to
like with
record.
college football going
Now,
on, obviously we have a little bit of a break until the bowl games. We can kind of push that into next
yeah,
week before New Year's.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about the draft though, Chris, when that comes around. I want to talk about some of
Yeah,
these
I think that
guys.
should be good for the off
That's gonna be
season.
fun. Be really fun because Chris. I think Chris knows. I have a long history of being upset with draft picks and a couple videos that are out of me not being too happy. But we'll say that for a proper draft conversation. So yeah, Chris, Merry Christmas, brother. Hope you have a great time with your family. You haven't you wait, you're not doing 90 to 7 fishes, right?
No, no seven fishers. We're Italian,
Ah,
but we're
I
not that
know.
Italian. I mean, we got a lot
Yeah.
of we do all the lasagna and all the pastas. But yeah, same to you.
Heck
Merry
yeah.
Christmas. Hope you have a wonderful time with your family. I'm
Yes,
sure
sir.
we'll be chopping it up all day talking about these games, seeing what we're going to talk
Heck
about later
yeah.
in the week.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, Merry Christmas, to everybody out there. We appreciate everybody that listens to our friends, our family, our other outside viewers. It's awesome. Chris and I are very grateful for just being able to talk ball all day and with each other. So, Happy New Year to you guys. If we actually no, we will see them, I guess, for before Happy New Year. So, Merry Christmas. Goodbye,
Happy
everybody.
holidays, everyone.